Welcome, thrill seekers, to a world of spine-chilling tales and hair-raising adventures. Gather around for a frightful journey into the unknown as we delve deep into the realm of scary stories. Buckle up, hold on tight, and get ready to experience a rush of terror like never before. It was supposed to be a weekend getaway, a chance to escape the stresses of everyday life and enjoy some time in nature. My friends and I had rented a secluded cabin deep in the woods, far away from the hustle and bustle of the city. We arrived on Friday evening, excited to spend the weekend relaxing and catching up. The cabin was cozy, with a warm fire burning in the fireplace and plenty of snacks and drinks to keep us satisfied. As the night wore on, we settled into our rooms, tired from the long drive. But as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. It started small, just a feeling of unease that I couldn't quite explain. But as the weekend went on, the feeling grew stronger. There was a sense of malevolence in the air, a feeling that we were not alone in the cabin. But every time I mentioned it to my friends, they brushed it off, insisting that it was just my imagination. As the hours passed, strange things began to happen. Doors would slam shut on their own, objects would move inexplicably, and we heard strange noises in the night. Despite our growing fear, we tried to carry on as normal, pretending that everything was fine. But deep down, we knew that something was very, very wrong. On Saturday night, things took a turn for the worse. As we sat around the fire, we heard a loud banging coming from upstairs. My friends and I raced to the second floor, only to find that one of the bedroom doors was locked from the inside. We could hear someone or something moving around inside, but no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't get the door open. As we stood there, trying to figure out what to do, we heard a low growling sound coming from behind the door. And then, suddenly, the growling turned into a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the cabin. We were terrified, trapped in a small, secluded cabin with something we couldn't explain. And as the night wore on, the entity's presence only grew stronger. As the entity's power grew, we began to feel its influence on our minds. We were no longer in control of our thoughts and actions, and it was as if the entity was manipulating us from the shadows. My friends and I began to turn on each other, our once close bonds shattered by the malevolent force that had taken hold of us. We became paranoid and irrational, unable to trust even those closest to us. It was as if the entity was feeding off our fear and anger, growing stronger with each passing moment. And we knew that if we didn't find a way to break its hold on us soon, we would all be lost forever. We knew that we had to do something, to take a stand against the entity and fight for our lives. We searched the cabin, looking for any clues as to how we could defeat the entity. And finally, we found what we were looking for, an old book filled with ancient spells and incantations. We didn't know what we were doing, but we had no choice. We gathered together, chanting the words from the book, hoping that they would be enough to banish the entity from our lives. And for a moment, it seemed like we had succeeded. The entity's hold on us weakened, and we were able to think clearly once again. But then, suddenly, the entity returned, more powerful than ever before. It was as if our attempts to banish it had only made it stronger, and we were left facing an even greater threat than before. We tried everything we could think of, but nothing seemed to work. The entity was relentless, and we were powerless against its dark and malevolent presence. As the night wore on, it became clear that we were running out of time. We knew that we couldn't keep fighting forever, and that eventually, the entity would overpower us and claim us as its own. And then, just as all hope seemed lost, we heard a knock at the door. We were hesitant to open the door, not knowing who or what might be waiting on the other side. But we knew that we had no other choice. And when we opened the door, we were greeted by an old man, dressed in tattered robes and carrying a staff. He introduced himself as a wise sage, and explained that he had sensed the presence of the malevolent entity and had come to help us banish it for good. We were skeptical at first, but the sage seemed to know exactly what he was talking about. He told us that the entity was a powerful demon, summoned from the depths of the underworld by some unknown force, and that it could only be defeated with the help of a sacred artifact, the Sword of Light. We didn't know what to make of his story, but we were desperate for a solution. And so we followed the sage's lead, gathering what we needed to summon the Sword of Light and bring an end to the entity's reign of terror. The Sword of Light was a powerful weapon, imbued with the energy of the sun and capable of destroying even the most malevolent of entities. But summoning it was no easy task. We had to perform a complex ritual involving incantations, blood sacrifices, and a deep connection to the forces of the universe. We were terrified as we worked, knowing that any mistake could mean our doom. But we were also filled with a sense of purpose, knowing that we were fighting for our lives and the safety of those we loved. And then, finally, we saw a bright light in the distance. It grew closer and closer until it became a blinding beam of pure energy. The Sword of Light had arrived. With the Sword of Light in hand, we faced the entity in a final, epic battle. It was a struggle for the ages, with the fate of our souls hanging in the balance. But in the end, we emerged victorious. With a single swing of the Sword of Light, we banished the entity back to the depths of the underworld, where it belonged. We were exhausted and battered, but we were also filled with a sense of pride and accomplishment. We had faced our greatest fear and come out the other side, stronger and more resilient than ever before. As we left the cabin and made our way back to civilization, we knew that we would never forget the horror of those long, dark nights in the woods. But we also knew that we had overcome it, and that we were stronger for it. And we knew that, no matter what horrors lay ahead, we would face them with courage and determination, knowing that we had the strength to overcome even the darkest of malevolent entities. As the night draws to a close, we bid farewell to the terrors that haunted us and the spine-tingling tales that kept us on the edge of our seats. Remember, the darkness may linger, but the dawn always brings a new light. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never stop exploring the mysteries of the unknown.